I'd say that your taxpayer dollars are paying for me to be a sales booster to companies in our state. And I help those small and medium-sized companies who are in that stage of growing into international sales, where maybe they don't quite have the financial wherewithal to hire their own international salesperson, or they've got great salespeople, but they need to move to that next level, or they need that extra partnering that'll help them start seeing revenues that will justify hiring more people. In the long run, it's really all about jobs, because if companies can grow revenues, they can hire more people. So when I take a look at a company, one of the things I like to look at is what percentage of your people are employed in Washington State. A company doesn't have to be headquartered here, but I like to see at least half their employees here, whatever size they are. So that's what I do. And I love it. It's the most interesting job I could possibly imagine. And it's really pretty amazing how I got here, because I come from a family in the arts and philosophy and theology. I'm almost like the black sheep in the family. My father looks at me and goes, he just shakes his head, business. He just doesn't. He's a professor of Asian art history and a musician and a painter. So how did I get here? I was also an art history major. I am quite fond of my father's career, quite frankly. I guess my last courses in college and my BA were focused on Chinese painting, and I could have very well gone to work in a museum. But when I got my BA from Mount Holyoke College back in 1976, I realized that I really didn't want to sit in the back rooms of some museum. I'm a people person. And I just felt like I had spent too much time with dictionaries and too much time on research, and I wanted to get out into the world. I also had a lot of friends in filmmaking and in the visual arts, and I just wanted to be out there. And I grew up overseas, so I wanted to travel, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was a gypsy. I had gone to college in France and in Japan, and I had changed colleges twice in America. Honestly, I have a BA, and I went to 4 colleges. So, and I waitressed through college, which was great money, but I had to wean myself away from that. It was fun, it was flexible, it made me great money. I worked in Harvard Square. I got to talk to all these people who went to graduate school at Harvard. They were fascinating people, but I wasn't going anywhere at that rate. So I came west to seek my fortune from Boston, and I landed in San Francisco in the 70s when tourism was rocketing. And they said, you speak Japanese, do we have a job for you? And I became a tour guide. And I launched my career in tourism, which I actually loved, because I moved to Seattle in 1980 when Washington State was also very aggressively seeking out the Japanese tourist dollar. So I worked for tour companies originally, and then I went into sales for the hotel industry. And I worked for the Four Seasons Hotel just after they opened the Olympic Hotel here, which was a terrific opportunity, because not only is the Olympic Hotel like a castle, I felt like I was a princess, but Japan Airlines had just signed Japan Airlines Hotel Division had signed a marketing agreement with Four Seasons. So I got to go to Japan on business trips and be part of the tourism promotion work in our state back in the 80s, when the Japanese tourist market was a huge business opportunity for us. At that time, one airline after the other was signing agreements. We had 4 carriers flying nonstop to Japan daily. That's how much business there was to Japan. It was an exciting time, and I got to learn a lot about doing business with the Japanese that as a child growing up in Japan, I couldn't have picked up on. I was a child. I was in elementary school. But I saw it from a new perspective. My hotel sales career led me, I went on to work for the Westin Hotel, a much bigger chain with much larger accounts. I was, again, international sales, but also tourism sales. But I had a baby, and my husband is a family practice doctor, and we both firmly believe that that first year of a child's life is very important. And I left work to be with my baby for about 18 months. I worked a little bit out of my home. And when I was ready to go back to work, I went back to hotel sales. But after 2 years of traveling with a small baby in daycare, it was too much. I decided that it was worth it for me to step off that fast track and cut my hours back. And I went to work for an international nonprofit group. And so I sought a smaller environment with more flexible hours, and I negotiated eventually to work 3/4 time while my daughter was in elementary school, because it was very much a priority to me to be available to her. I still kept my international business contacts going, I still was very much part of the downtown international trade community. And so the networking that had served me well in the 80s, before I had a baby, continued to serve me well throughout the time that our daughter was going through elementary school. That led me to conference sales. I was part of the opening team for the Bell Harbor International Conference Center on the Seattle waterfront. One of my favorite projects. It's very exciting to be part of the opening or launching of anything. You're inventing your job, you're inventing your job environment, and that was supercharged and a real adrenaline rush. So I have worked in very large established environments like the Westin hotel chain, where there are lots of procedures in place, and you have to navigate through a large organization. But I've also worked for a startup, you might say, because the company that was managing the Bell Harbor Conference Center for the Port of Seattle was, in fact, new in the hospitality industry. And they hired me because that's what industry I came from. And then I was hired by the Japan-America Society of the state of Washington to be their executive director. That was a real experiment. I was pretty afraid to make that step because I had worked in nonprofits, but running a nonprofit and managing a board of directors was something I didn't particularly feel prepared for, but it was one of those things where I said, okay, I'm going to stretch my wings. These people have faith in me. Why not give it a try? So you might say throughout my career, I kept just inventing myself, and the common thread is international. Obviously, I have an international background, and I speak foreign languages, but not every job required that of me every day or even every week. It wasn't necessarily the focus of my life. It probably was the ticket that kind of got me in the door compared to all the other applicants. It certainly made a difference. I had a window of opportunity when Japan was hot, and I speak Japanese, so that was certainly working in my favor. But when I got down to my day-to-day work, the number of times I actually got to speak Japanese was pretty limited, to be very honest. Conference sales and nonprofit management allowed me to become self-employed at one point, which was a real exciting opportunity for me because in all of this, I think one of the points I'll make in a minute here is that you really have to think of yourself as your own sales and marketing director. And once you're self-employed, boy, that's what you really are. And most self-employed people struggle all day long with what percentage of my time do I spend selling myself, and what percentage of my time do I spend getting the job done that I've just sold. And it's a balancing act. And there were times when I was underemployed, and there were times when I was overemployed. When you're self-employed, it's a hard thing to manage because you've got to keep priming the pump, and sometimes all the jobs pile up. But as a self-employed person working out of my home, I was able to organize trade missions to Japan for the Japan-America Society. I also ran an international medical meeting, and I got to work with an event management company, so I worked on the WTO. I was the hospitality manager. I managed a team of about 150 employees for the 3 hospitality events that were scheduled for the WTO. I had one paid person reporting to me, and everyone else was volunteers. So it was a very exciting job, and I must say our community really stepped up to the occasion with some wonderful talent. I had meeting planners from places like Boeing and Microsoft reporting to me, so I had a dynamite team of volunteers that I could hold totally accountable, and I think they did a fantastic job. I also got to work on the opening of the EMP, the Experience Music Project. I got to work on the opening of the W Hotel. So I love event management. And logistics are just second nature. I was a tour guide, getting people to the right place at the right time, all together now, on the bus, off the bus. I can do that in my sleep. But here I am in the trade office, and you know what's interesting is a lot of the people in the trade office have master's degrees in international business management and so on and so forth, and we talk about trade policy and all these lofty things, but when it comes down to our day-to-day work, when the governor goes on a trade mission, I say, guys, back up a minute, let me tell you a few things about hotel contracts and logistics. So all these things I've done have had something to do with the role that I play on the teams that I've found myself on. So what was mentioned before about flexibility, bringing your passions to the table, bringing your skills to the table is so important. Because if I can kind of connect the dots for you, and since I am addressing supposedly a topic focused on women, I did go to an all-women's college, and I did start out in an industry that was predominantly women. The travel industry has a lot of women in it. And I think they are, in fact, more and more moving